The bear's weight crashed into Nate with the force of a wrecking ball. He hit the deck hard, the air torn from his lungs. For one terrifying second, the world blurred, just snarling breath and heat and fur pressing down. Then the bear reared back, its massive claws scraping the wood as it stumbled on tangled netting. Lucas fired the flare gun. The shot went wide, crashing harmlessly into a stack of buckets. Sparks exploded. The bear spun toward the sound, letting out a guttural roar. Tommy screamed and ducked behind the helm. "Don't shoot again," Nate shouted, clutching his side, trying to rise. "It's not trying to kill us." The bear swiped at a hanging rope, knocking it loose. A heavy tackle box tumbled and cracked open, spilling metal hooks across the slick deck. The creature stepped back, spooked by its own destruction, then growled again, lower this time, more confused than enraged. Another boom, this one not from the bear, but from the sky. The storm had arrived. Wind howled down from the mountains, slamming into the Kathleen May like an invisible freight train. Rain burst from the clouds in a torrential sheet, blinding them instantly. Waves lifted the vessel, then dropped it violently. Somewhere, something broke. Metal groaned. A rope snapped loose and whipped across the deck like a striking snake. "Get it secured," Lucas shouted, gripping the railing. "I've got the bow," Tommy yelled, already moving. Nate staggered to his feet, soaked and hurting, eyes locked on the bear. It was cornered now near the aft deck, panting, eyes darting between the chaos and the men. "Help me trap it, don't hurt it," Nate called. Between the three of them, they used what they had, nets, loose crates, and even parts of the railing to guide the bear into a tight corner beneath the aft stairwell. It resisted at first, pawing at the walls, growling, but it didn't strike out. It didn't attack. It seemed scared. Lucas jammed a steel rod through the handles of a bolted door, reinforcing the barrier. "That'll hold, for now," he muttered, wind flattening his rain-soaked hair against his face. Lightning forked across the sky. The thunder cracked loud enough to make the hull vibrate. Nate collapsed into a sitting position just outside the makeshift pen, water pooling around his legs. The bear huffed softly behind the crate wall, but didn't lunge. Didn't even growl. "We're locked in here with it," Tommy said, checking the wheel. "And the comms are fried. No GPS, no radio." "Just us, the storm, and that thing," Lucas said grimly. The storm intensified. Waves smashed the hull relentlessly, sending gear skidding across the deck. One of the water tanks tipped loose. A cabinet door below slammed open and shut with every roll of the sea. Water began flooding the lower level. They worked fast, tying down what they could, bailing where they had to. There was no room to panic. All the while, Nate kept checking on the bear. Hours passed. The storm didn't let up. The sky turned black with night. Somewhere around midnight, the wind shrieked like a chorus of banshees. Rain came at them sideways, slicing through the cold. The boat rocked harder than ever. Every impact felt like it might be the last. Then, something changed. The bear stopped growling. When Nate checked the enclosure, he found it huddled in the farthest corner, pressed against the wall, paws covering its ears. Its massive frame shook with every boom of thunder. It wasn't fighting anymore. It was afraid. Nate moved slowly, carefully, crawling across the slick deck despite the lurching of the ship. He reached into the compartment and pulled a tarp over the bear's shoulders. It flinched, but didn't attack. He laid a hand against its soaked fur. "You're not the monster, are you?" he whispered. "You're just lost." The bear's chest heaved, its muscles trembled, but it let him stay. That was when Nate noticed something unusual. Near the bear's right shoulder, buried beneath layers of matted fur, was a small metallic bump. He leaned in. Water dripped from his brow as he gently parted the thick hair. There, sticking out at an odd angle, was a broken plastic casing, blackened by exposure, wedged into the skin. A tag. He pulled out a pocket knife, cleaned the blade, and carefully extracted the piece. It was a GPS tracker. cracked and corroded but legible. On the underside, etched in thin lines, was an alphanumeric code, NWRC AL 21058. He turned it over in his hand, blinking rain out of his eyes. "This bear was tagged," he muttered. "Not wild, not fully anyway." He stumbled back inside the cabin and yanked open his gear bag, rummaging for his field journal. Flipping to the back pages, he scanned quickly until he found it. A brief mention he'd jotted down months ago while working another fishing trip along the Bering Sea coast. Wildlife Relocation Project. Tagged grizzlies reintroduced via barge to coastal preserve. Lost signal mid-storm. Never recovered. Assumed drowned. His stomach dropped. This bear was one of them. He ran back out to the bear. The creature looked up slowly as he approached, ears twitching with the wind. "You weren't just some stray," Nate said. "You were part of a research group. You got dumped in the wrong place, or worse, left behind." The bear blinked, slow and heavy. "You were never supposed to be out here. That storm, months ago, that must have torn the ship apart. You've been adrift ever since, haven't you?" He thought back to how emaciated it had been, how close to death they'd found it. This bear had probably washed up somewhere it didn't belong, wandered for miles, got pushed back out to sea trying to find food or land, and nobody came looking. At dawn, the storm broke. The rain lightened. The winds died. The sky split open with gold and silver streaks as the sun breached the horizon. They emerged, soaked and half-frozen, onto a battered deck. The Kathleen May had survived. Barely, but they were lost, disoriented. The GPS unit sparked and hissed when Lucas tried to reboot it. The engine sputtered and choked. Fuel was low. They had maybe 6 hours before they'd be stranded entirely. But the bear was still alive. That counted for something. "You bonded with that thing, didn't you?" Lucas asked, watching Nate feed the bear a thawed salmon chunk. Nate nodded. "I don't know how, but yeah, I did." Tommy climbed the mast and finally managed to get a weak radio signal. "This is the Kathleen May, requesting emergency assistance," he called out. "We've been off-grid. Current coordinates unknown. Damage from storm significant. Fuel critical. Please advise." A crackle of static. Then a voice. "Kathleen May, this is Coast Guard Sector Juno. You're not pinging from where you should be. Are you certain of your location?" "We're not certain of anything," Tommy replied. "Because the signal we're picking up, you're drifting south by southeast, toward Zone Delta 6. That's iceberg territory. That area's not safe for small vessels." Nate stepped forward. "Wait, what do you mean, iceberg territory?" "Unstable shelf calvings were reported last week. We've had movement underwater, possibly glacial displacement, and—" The voice hesitated. "And what?" Nate pressed. "Multiple sonar signatures. We're picking up large bodies moving beneath the surface near your position. Unknown origin." Lucas swore. "What kind of bodies?" "We don't know," came the grim reply. "But you're not alone out there." Nate stared out across the eerily calm water. The bear lifted its head. Its ears twitched. Then something bumped the underside of the boat. Something big. The storm had come out of nowhere, waves pounding like war drums on the side of the old trawler. Nate's hands were blistered from hours of hauling gear, and the crew was soaked, bone deep. Then the voice came through the static. "Something's in the net." Instant chaos. Nets weren't supposed to move like that. Something huge thrashed beneath the waves, too erratic to be a fish. Nate dropped everything, rushing to the stern. Through rain and salt spray he caught a glimpse of fur. Brown fur. Not a seal, not a sea lion. A bear. The fight to survive. It was impossible. They were 20 miles offshore, deep in the North Pacific. A polar bear out here made no sense, and this wasn't even a polar bear. It was a grizzly, massive and half-drowned, tangled in the net and barely conscious. "Cut the line," one of the crew shouted. "We'll lose the whole haul," another yelled back. Nate didn't wait. He grabbed the emergency release and severed the gear. The net snapped free, and the bear bobbed to the surface, limp as a ghost. But it wasn't over. The moment of contact. Against every protocol and instinct, Nate dropped to his knees at the edge of the deck, rope in hand. The bear was drifting away. He threw the line, missed, threw again, caught on a paw. He pulled. Everyone screamed at him to stop, but the bear clung on. There was a moment, so brief it almost wasn't real, when the bear locked eyes with him. Wild, terrified eyes. And then it went limp again. They hauled the animal aboard with a makeshift sling. It was breathing. Barely. The impossible decision. "Call it in," Nate said. "To who?" the captain asked, looking horrified. "The Coast Guard? Wildlife Enforcement? They'll have us arrested." "Then don't tell them we caught a bear," Nate said, already covering the animal with his own jacket. "Tell them we found a survivor." The crew revolts. Tempers flared. A few crew members threatened to turn back immediately, but they were too far out, and the storm had closed in behind them. There was no quick way home. Nate stayed with the bear all night, hand on its side, feeling the shudders of fever and cold. The others whispered about putting it down, throwing it back, salvaging what was left of the season. But Nate didn't move. Unbreakable bond. At dawn, the bear stirred. Its breath rasped and its head lifted just enough to look at Nate. A low sound, barely audible, escaped its throat. Not a growl, not a roar. Something else, a sound like asking, a sound like trust. Cliffhanger ending. Suddenly, the radar pinged. Another shape in the water, larger this time, moving fast. The crew ran to the bow, and what they saw made them forget to breathe. Not one bear, two. But the second wasn't swimming, it was floating. Face down,